Hey everyone, I welcome you all to this platform study room. Now we are going to start with a different topic, that is caste and politics. In the previous video we got to know about gender in politics and religion in politics, whereas the gender in politics have a very positive aspect and religion and within the frame of politics have a totally negative aspect. But caste is something that has both positive as well as negative aspects. So let's start with this and we're going to start about it. Okay, so let's go. So caste inequalities. So as we can see here, this pyramid, through this pyramid, that there were 4 type of caste at that time. It was based on the Varna system that was existing at the time. That is, first were the at the topmost hierarchy we can see there were Brahmins, basically those who were priests and academics who were involved in teaching and performing rituals. The second one were the Kshatriyas. There were warriors and kings which were involved in wars, administration and managing of everything. Then we had Vaishyas who were merchants and landowners basically, and the last one was Shudras, the commoners, peasants, servants. Okay, so that's how the society was being classified at that moment. At that time it was this classification was not based on birth, it was based on occupation. Earlier it was based on occupation. What kind of occupation an individual has determines the type of caste he will belong to. So it was something like this, if I perform I'm involved in education or I'm performing rituals, then I will be belonging to the caste of Brahmin category. And if I have some warrior skills or I am a warrior or I'm a king or something, then I belong to a Kshatriya category. Okay, it doesn't matter. In one single family they could have people from different caste as well. It was not something like which was like predetermined or based on birth of an individual. It was something that if a person is good in that thing, or if a person has this work, then he belongs to this caste. Okay, and other than these 4, we had one other aspect towards this one system, that were the untouchables. They were basically the outcast of they were out of these castes. They were street sweepers, latrine cleaners or dirt removers. These were known as untouchables. They had to stay like these 4, the people from different categories or different, they used to belong in different communities, and they were separated from the other communities as well. Okay, so that's how the social differences or caste inequalities were taking place at that time. So caste system, this what happened, they exercised from this, and it was later on started changing to from occupation to by birth or by hereditary, if we talk about it, right? So in most societies, occupations are passed from one generation to other. This is it started taking place by birth. This caste system is an extreme form of division. So what happened earlier, it was very flexible according to what individual does into that particular caste that individual must be belonging to. But later on what happened, it transformed from occupational basis to by birth basis or something by hereditary. That's how there was a very great change in terms of how the caste was taking place, and caste inequalities started happening at that time. It started happening that the members of the same caste group were supposed to form a social community, and they were like that practiced the same or similar occupation. They had to get married within that caste particular group only, and they did not eat with the members from the other caste. So what happened, if someone belongs to this particular caste, they had to marry within this particular caste only. They were belonging to that particular social community only. So they used to exclude other castes, and they never sit together with them or eat together with them. They were eating or sitting and spending their time within that particular community only, even getting married within that particular clan, tribe or community. So that's how caste inequality started framing in that time, and this led to what this caste system was based on, what exclusion of and discrimination against the outcast groups. We can see it was basically discrimination against these. Discrimination against the outcast, Okay, so what happened after all this? There were several political leaders who wanted to stand for them, and they took several attempts in order to eradicate these caste inequalities, which includes Jyotibai Phule, Gandhiji, B.R. Ambedkar, and Periyar Ramaswamy. Alright. So caste was basically a form of social stratification which was characterized by endogamy. Here, caste was basically social stratification. If we talk, let's take it like this. Social stratification, which was characterized by endogamy. Basically, this is endogamy. This is a custom of marrying only within that particular limits of local community. As I have stated before as well, they were living within that particular community only. They did not spend time with other communities, or they got to married within that particular community only. So that's how social stratification happened. With the help of first was endogamy, and then second was what they performed, that was hereditary transmission of their style of life. Transmission of style of life. So basically, if what happened, generation after generation, the occupations were passed on. This was happening within that in the society at that time. So it often includes that occupation status on the basis of hierarchy, customary and social interaction, and then exclusion based on the cultural notions of any sort of purity or pollution. So that's how they were started making differences and classifying each other's community. A caste system was basically in which people are born into a social standing and will remain within that particular community or standing for whole their lives. People were assigned occupation regardless of the talent, interest, or the potential an individual holds. So that's how what was happening. They were, as we can see, these occupations were passed from one generation to another, regardless of their talents, interest, and potential. So that's how the societies were taking place at that time. So, and the caste system was taking place at that time. We can see caste inequalities which were based on hereditary transmission of style of life from occupations were passed from one generation to another. This was basically extreme or form of division that was happening at that time. We got to know about the Varna system, where we had 4 Varnas and one sort of category, that was untouchables. They did not belong to the Varna system, and any community were not sitting or were not spending time, or we were not even close to these untouchables, because they were at the lowest strata of that hierarchical table, hierarchical triangle we can see here. So the first were the Brahmins, and Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, and Shudras, and the last one were the untouchables basically. They used to be very segregated and separated from the whole Varna system and the category of community. And this social stratification was based on endogamy, that the people belonging to one community will end up marrying within that community only, and hereditary transmission of style of life. The occupation or the style of life the individual or the particular community was living within, it used to get transmitted from one generation to another. And untouchables had to face discrimination because of they were considered as outcasts, and they used to perform activities that were considered at that time, accordingly to that time, as low, or something that was what some people who were from lower category used to do. It was at that time the stereotype or that particular perception of untouchables was okay. And in the starting it was based on occupation, but later on it started getting converted in by birth or hereditary basis. Okay. So various leaders, like we have talked before as well, Jyotirao Phule, Ramaswamy Periyar Ramaswamy, Ambedkar, Gandhiji were involved in this process in order to eradicate all these caste inequalities that were existing within the society, so that they were making several attempts in order to do so. We can see here the breaking down of caste hierarchy. We saw that there were several efforts, and partially due to several socio-economical changes that were taken by the social reformers. Here we can see efforts of social reformers. It includes Jyotirao Phule, Gandhiji, Ambedkar, Periyar, Ramaswamy. Okay, these are mentioned within our textbook as well. So there were several efforts by the social reformers taking place that led to several socio-economical changes within the caste system in modern India. And with these economical development that was happening, large scale urbanization also occurred. This was economic development, right, leading to what? Urbanization at that time. And basically urbanization, what is urbanization? Urbanization is basically a shift of population from the rural areas to the urban areas. Okay, we have talked about it, like from going from villages to the towns or cities is basically known as urbanization. Then they had the growth within the education and literacy rate started increasing. This led to, and accordingly we saw occupational mobility as well. What is exactly occupational mobility here? Earlier we can see the occupation was transferred, like there was hereditary transmission of the style of life, what occupation one individual has to follow. It was basically transferred from one generation to another. But occupation mobility was something that is shift from one type of occupation to the another. And usually when a new generation takes up an occupation that is different from what their ancestor used to do. If like taking an example that one individual belongs to a family of shoemakers, but he decided to do something else, he decided to become a trader. So that's how he started, like he changed his occupation. That was known as occupation mobility. So there were several breaking down efforts which were taken for of this breaking down the caste hierarchy. That were efforts by social reformers including Jyotirao Phule, Gandhiji, Ambedkar, Periyar Ramaswamy. And then they were, because of the economical development that was happening at that time, this led to what? Urbanization. Urbanization was basically a shift from rural areas to the urban areas, from villages and those areas to towns and cities, in order for getting more employment opportunities and economical financial benefits. Okay, and then there was also increase in the literacy rate and education. There were several steps taken by the political leaders, the government and the people in order to increase the standard of education within the categories of people who do not have these opportunities for studying. Like at that moment there were people belonging to who were considered as untouchables before the Article 17 was invoked within our constitution. So this is like the growth of education and literacy rate. It was given several attempts and several efforts were made in this. And then we had the occupational mobility, where in which individuals were allowed to change their occupation than that their ancestors had before. And then lastly we have constitutional provisions against the caste discrimination. We can see several constitutional provisions that have been made in order to avoid every sort of caste discrimination within the country, within our country in the constitution. With like untouchability has been totally abolition of untouchability, and several other attempts in order to have equality in regard of every gender, caste, religion, sex or anything. So that's how there were several measures which are taken by the leaders and performers and the government in order to maintain equality within our country. So that's how we can see that they try to make efforts in doing the breaking down of the caste hierarchy. So if we talk about the urban areas, does not have much who is walking along next to us or street or eating. So in the urban areas there are not people concerned about what others are doing. They are very self-focused. So that's how in the Constitution of India, what it did, it prohibited any caste-based discrimination, which laid the foundation of policies to reverse the institution of caste system. So these were taken, these attempts were made in order to avoid any sort of caste inequality within our country. We can see the caste system was basically an extreme form of hereditary transmission. I have stated before as well, it was extreme form of hereditary transmission from one generation to another. Hereditary transmission from one generation to another, like from one generation to the next. People were assigned occupation regardless of what their talents, what their potential and skills they hold, and members of the same caste were supposed to have like to belong to form a social community in such a way that who practice the same or similar occupation while within the caste group. He did not have to like belong to, or it does not have to eat with or sit with the people from different community. So that's how the caste hierarchy was taking place. Based on this caste system, several castes were prohibited from accessing the common public properties and resources that we have talked about, the untouchables, right? They were not allowed to enter the temples at that time or to get proper education along with the people from above caste or upper caste. So that's how untouchability was basically a practice of ostracizing a group of people regarded as untouchables, resulting in their segregation from the upper caste. So Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who was considered to be the untouchable leader, I have to write it, he was considered as untouchable leader. So made great efforts in order to eliminate this caste system, that was caste system privileges. So leaders including, I have already said before, Jyotirao Phule, Periyar Ramaswamy Naikar and Gandhiji along with Ambedkar, they advocated and worked in order to establish a society in which these inequalities will not exist. So these were the several attempts were taken by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar in order to to eradicate this untouchability. And what was untouchability? Untouchability was basically a practice of ostracizing a group of people regarded as untouchables. So that's how there were several segregation within the society that were taking place at that time. Moving ahead, we got to know about the caste in politics. So the political parties used to nominate candidates based on the composition of the electorate to appeal to the caste sentiments. Universal adult franchise has brought changes and made this quite better. We have to mention this properly, that caste did not disappear from the contemporary India. There are several times or several aspects of caste which still persist till now. Like the people, the most people marry within their own caste or within their own tribe. So untouchability has not ended completely. There have been, despite all those constitutional amendments or constitutional prohibition that has taken place, there have been several effects of centuries of advantage and disadvantage which continue to be felt till now. The caste groups that had held access to the education under the old system have done very well in acquiring the modern education as well. But those who did not have the access at that time are quite suffering at this moment, because they are not able to manage with the modern type of education that is taking place now. So they did not have the access to education at that time. So because they were prohibited from doing so, and now they are naturally lagged behind. Despite all these constitutional steps that were taken, they are still there is still a large portion of upper caste people among the upper middle classes which have better opportunities than the people from lower background or lower caste. So that's how this whole caste system or caste inequality still persists within the contemporary modern India. But what happened in the caste and within the political sphere is that caste take various forms within the politics. Various forms in politics. Okay, this is what caste does. So one is that the parties choose their candidate in elections. They keep in mind that the state composition, the caste composition of electorate nominate candidates from different castes as to muster necessary support to win the elections. So the political parties nominate candidates based on the composition of the electorate in order so that they could appeal to the large segments of the people. Okay, so that is appeal to the caste sentiments, which were like large number of communities they could appeal to. So that's what the political parties do. Number second is that universal adult franchise has brought changes in a better way. How we can say about it is that these political parties and candidates appeal to caste sentiments to muster their support, and by this universal adult franchise, that is that every individual who is an adult has an authority, has the ability or has that their own vote So some political parties are known to favor some caste, whereas some particular community. This is about to happen. But what is this? In this universal adult franchise that we have now, is that the principle of one person, one vote. One person and one vote. Okay, so which compel the political leaders to gear up to tasks in such a way that they have to mobilize, they have to secure the political support among the political community or among that society. It also brought new consciousness among the people of the caste that were hitherto treated as inferior and low. So due to this universal adult franchise that was taking place, that is, we can also write as UAF, they brought changes in such a way that one person belongs to one vote. In this way, the political leaders have to approach every community, they have to muster up their support from every political every individual who belongs to the society, so that every person could be benefited from it in one way or another. And their views could be listened. So the UAF has been playing a very important role in the political scenario and involving the caste within the politics. So that's how we can say that caste has taken various forms within the political scenario. So do you think that political leaders are right to treat people belonging to caste as vote banks? This is a new kind of a thing within the election process that has been started taking place till now, that the political leaders treat the society in such a way in terms of community basis or the caste basis, if we talk about, as their vote banks. So in order to get the support of a lot of people, they have to approach a lot of communities and lot of caste within the society. In this way, they try to muster up the support from a lot of people, and they have to work accordingly or have to work in such a way that they could attract a lot of votes. So yes, they treat people belonging to a caste as a vote bank. It depends upon from party to party as well. Okay, so let's talk about how much caste. We can see here that how much does caste affect the elections. So no constituency has a clear caste majority. We must understand that no constituency has a clear caste majority basically. And then number second one is that no party wins the vote of all the voters from all the communities. So it is literally impossible for any party to win the votes of all the voters of the caste or community. When people say that there is a caste is in a vote bank of one party, is usually mean that a large proportion of voters from that caste vote for that party. So if we talk about any one religion, one caste or one community sort of a thing as vote bank in terms of politics, we cannot assure that all the people from that particular community will vote for that particular party. So it is like the majority will vote from that particular community to that party. It's like that. It's not that everyone will be voting for that particular party only. It's not. It is not impossible. It is not possible. So no constituency has a clear caste majority is such a way that every candidate party needs to win the election confidence of more than one caste or community in order to win the elections. It is important for every party to win the to muster up the support of many communities or many castes so that they could win the elections, and no party wins the votes of all voters from one particular community. Number third, then some voters have more than one candidate from their caste while others have none. It often happens that many political parties set up candidates from same caste, so that so that they could dominate in the politics with that particular caste. Okay, so some voters have more than one candidate from that particular caste, while voters does not even have one candidate from that particular caste. It depends upon what the party is thinking or their perspective is, and how much they wanted to approach to the people. Number fourth is the ruling party or sitting MLA frequently lose elections. It happens that the ruling party and the MP or MLA which is sitting might lose elections, frequently lose election in our country. That could not happen if all the caste and communities were frozen into that political preference. So by this, what we wanted to tell people, that it is not possible that one political party is like one community belongs to one political party only, or all the people from that particular community will vote for that party, because the sitting MLAs or MPs, they keep on changing. They often lose their elections in their next term. So if that particular MLA would be sitting in power for a long period, it would have ensure the people that particular community belongs totally give support to that party. But as we can see, the ruling party or sitting MLAs frequently lose elections. So this shows us that exactly to us that all caste and communities, it is not possible for all caste and communities to be frozen to that particular preference only. They keep on changing their ideas, their opinions for that particular party, or they keep on changing their to whom they wanted to vote now. So that's how we can say that the vote bank keeps on changing, but it is how the party approaches towards that particular caste and community determines their ability to win the elections. Okay, let's move further. We can see here that caste inequality today. Let's move back. So the focus on caste in politics can sometime replay. So the focus on caste in politics sometimes gives an impression that the elections are all about caste and nothing else. Okay, so but there are many factors to consider, that no parliamentary constituency in the country has clear-cut majority for that particular single caste only. Every candidate needs to win the confidence of more than one caste in order to win the elections. It is like about to happen. No party wins the votes of all the voters from that particular community or caste, and some voters have more than one candidate from one caste, whilst many voters have no candidate from their caste. So that's how it is. Elections are not all about just caste and everything, but yes, they have in country like India, they play an important segment in the election and politics. Okay, moving ahead, we will see how the caste inequality today exists. So through this source, we can say the caste is an important source of economic inequality because it regulates accesses to the resources of various kinds. We can see here, we have scheduled tribe, scheduled caste, other backward caste, Muslim upper caste, Hindu upper caste, Christian upper caste, Sikh upper caste, other upper caste, and all the groups all together. So this is a percentage of population living below the poverty line from 1999 to 2000. Okay, the people who are this is the percentage of population living below the poverty line, 1999 to 2000. Okay, so the average economic, today it is possible to find very rich and very poor people in every caste, whether they are low or high. We can find a lot of people are depending like rich or poor in every caste, or every caste, it at very high level or at a very low level as well. So the average economic status, which is measured by the criteria like monthly consumption expenditure of caste groups, still follows the old hierarchy. That is, the upper caste are best of all, and the Dalits and Adivasis, or these people from the lower category, I mean they are not low categories, but they are considered to be the economically in poor condition, are worst off, and the backward castes are in the between, if we can see. So that's how today we see caste inequalities in today's scenario. Okay, however, we have to understand the voters have a strong attachment to the political parties, which is often stronger than their attachment to their caste or community. So people within that same caste or community have different interests. If they people within the same caste also have different form of interest, or depending upon their economic condition. If we can see that there are rich and poor, or men and women from same caste often vote very differently. So they could be very rich people and very poor people within the same caste only. So it is possible, they are like very rich and poor, low and high category of people are available in every caste nowadays. So people's assessment of performance of the governance, of popularity rating of the leaders matter and are often decisive in the elections. So these matters also decide a very important role in form of election that takes place in the politics. So whether the person belongs to a very rich part of the that's caste or low, it depends. According to the economical status, their viewpoints, their ideology, their voting pattern differs, and whether they are men, women, it differs automatically accordingly to that. So earlier we got to know that how caste plays a very important role in the politics. Now we will talk about that how politics plays an important role within the caste segment area. So let's go and find out is politics in caste. So just as caste influences politics, politics also influences caste in one way, that is each caste group strives to become bigger. They tried every sort of a way in order to enhance, or they like enhance their caste group. Each caste group tries to become bigger by incorporating within various neighboring castes or subcastes which were already excluded from them. Okay. Then number second is coalition between the castes. Various caste groups are required to enter into a coalition with other castes or communities and thus enter into a dialogue or negotiation. So this is what they do. They try to what? Various caste groups are required to enter in a coalition. They try to be in a coalition sort of a thing, so that these with other communities or other castes, just to enter into a dialogue or any negotiation, so that they could, basically this is similar to the first one we can see here, that each caste groups try to become bigger and coalition between the castes also arises because of that. So new caste groups like backward or forward caste have formed. So new kind of caste groups have come together up now in this political arena, that are backward and forward caste groups. So thus caste plays a very different kind of roles in politics. In some situation, it is expression of caste differences in politics gives many disadvantaged communities the space to demand their share of power. So because of caste, what it gives the people the opportunity, like they, in expression of caste differences in the politics, they could express their differences in politics because of the existence of caste within the politics or politics in caste by this. Okay, caste plays a different kind of roles in politics. Number one, it is that it gives the opportunity for the people to express their differences within the frame of politics, and many disadvantaged communities give this space to demand their share of power. It allows disadvantaged communities to demand for power Okay, and in this sense we can say that politics has helped the people from Dalit, OBC caste to gain better access to the decision making. It has allows them better access for decision making. Okay, several political and non-political organizations have been demanding and agitating for an end to this discrimination and against the particular caste for more dignity and more access to land and resources and opportunities. And at the same time, exclusive attention to a particular caste can produce negative results as well. So we can see that these are like the positive effects that happen when caste is involved within the politics, that the different castes are allowed so that they could what? They could express their differences in politics. It allows the disadvantaged communities to demand. This allows them to demand for power and provide better access for decision making process. Okay, so this is what are the positive aspects that we see when caste is involved within the political area. However, it also has certain negative impact as well, that as in the case of religion, politics based on caste identity alone is not very healthy in democracy. So it can divert attention from other pressing issues like poverty, development and corruption. In some cases, caste division leads to what? Tensions, conflicts and even violence. So this, we can write it here, the negative impact as well, which caste face after getting involved within the politics. So what happens? Issues like poverty, development and corruption gets excluded or get less attention, because we are focusing on caste only. That's why they get less attention to this. These issues get less attention, and some cases caste division leads to what? Tensions, conflicts and violence as well. Some cases it leads to violence, tension and conflicts. So that's how the caste within the frame of politics have positive as well as negative impact within the political arena. Okay, moving ahead. So let's now do some questions about it. So question number 1, mention different aspects of life in which women are discriminated or disadvantaged in India. We have read in our second, Question number 1. Mention different aspects of life in which women are discriminated or disadvantaged in India. We have read in our previous video of gender in politics as well. Number 1 is literacy. Right. So in literacy, the literacy rate for women is very less, that is around 65.46% against the 82.14% for men. This shows that since independence, the gap between the men and women ratio, that is literacy, still cannot be filled. And now upon the second thing, that is higher education. Comparing the perspective of boys and girls, if we talk about, we have now higher education. So comparing the perspective of boys and girls opting for higher education after schools, it is lower for the girls as they tend to drop out after school. We often see that girls often drop out after school because their parents are not able to provide their financial support in order to pursue their higher education, as parents do not wish to spend their resources on girl education. This is kind of a stereotype that they have in their mind, that they don't want to spend money or their financial, so they do not want to provide financial support to the girls education, which is quite expected with the boys cases. So they wanted to spend that money that they are spending in girls education rather than to the boy child that they have. Number 3 is high paid jobs. So in this, what happened, the percentage of women who are acquiring the high paid jobs, the positions at high positions within a company or any organization is very less, is still smaller than the men. If we talk about it, on average, an Indian woman works 1 hour. We have talked about it in our time survey as well, that Indian woman works for 1 hour in an average. If we talk about, this is an average, if we are talking about, that woman works 1 hour more than average men works every day. So we have to know that Indian woman works 1 hour more than any average men who works every day. However, the high positions in any company, organization, and any high paid jobs are not given to the women. Even if they belong to they are doing the same task, if men or women are doing the same task in terms of cinema, sports, any field, industry, mining, or any field, they are not getting the same amount of wage or same amount of they are not payment as the men is getting in by doing the same task. Okay. Number 4th is the Equal Remuneration Act. Equal Remuneration Act that happened in 1976. It provides that equal wages should be paid to equal work. However, in almost all the areas of work, from sports and cinemas to factories and field, women are paid less than the men, even though they both do exactly the same sort of a work. So this is what I have stated before as well. Even after we have an act like this, still it is not in it is not getting even though we have an act like Equal Remuneration Act in 1976, still it is not functioning well and it is not getting into practice properly. Number 5th is the sex ratio. If we talk about, we have talked about it in our previous video, that of India is 107.48. That is 107.48 males per 100 females in 2009. So we have a sex ratio of 919 females per 1000 males. This is the highest one in many states. Many states have less than even 900 in our country. Many states like Delhi, we have Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, and a lot of states like this, they don't have proper equal, or Punjab, Haryana have a very low sex ratio. They have around 840 something, 830 per 1000 males. So that's how these many different aspects of life where women are discriminated or disadvantaged. And lastly, they face harassment, violence. It could be in their public sphere, private sphere, within their family. They have to face all these things, unfortunately, because of the patriarchal society that we have. So that's how they mention different aspects of life in which women are discriminated or disadvantaged in India. That is literacy, then higher education, high paid jobs are mostly reserved for the men only, equal remuneration act, they are not getting proper equal wages, the sex ratio and the harassment and violence that they face within normally in their life. Okay, going on to question number 2, state different forms of communal politics with one example each. We must understand that different forms of communal politics are there. Okay, so number 1 we can talk about is communalism takes form of religious prejudices. Okay, so we can make it right. Communalism takes form of religious prejudices, stereotypes of religious communities and beliefs in the superiority of one's religion over others' religion. Okay, so if we have to take, like, the communities take various forms of various prejudices, stereotypes or religious communities in which that one belief is of that they believe that one is superior to the other religion or other community. If we talk about the various militant religious groups or that occur within the particular area of our countries. Okay, so if we can take all this example as militant religious groups. Okay, number 2 is the quest for political dominance of one religion over another in a community. It takes a form of majoritarianism. For example, the tiff between Hindus and Muslims. So what happened, that this quest to have one particular community superior to the another takes place within our community. Political domination of one community over other. Okay, we can think about, like, let's take an example of Sri Lanka that we had, right? Sinhala wanted to dominate the country by even oppressing the Tamils. Okay, so number 3 we have political mobilization on religious lines in another frequent form of communalism. So we have political mobilization on religious lines. Okay, take an example of, let's take an example of the during elections hate speeches come to surface through, these are like communalism, like political mobilization that takes place. Okay, it could be like promoting one particular community over the another, like through politically. It could be like during elections we see hate speeches coming to surface through communalism, right? And number 4 is communal violence, which we see is another form of communalism in politics. Example, India and Pakistan TFP that we have. Okay, so communal violence that we see. Before that, political mobilization on religious line, it could be use of sacred text that we see. Sacred text, we could have symbols, use of symbols, religious leaders. So these are the examples through which political mobilization occurs. And communal violence, taking an example of what happened in India and Pakistan. Communal riots that have occurred. So these are the example of that. So state different forms of communal politics with one example each. That communalism that happens with like religious prejudices, stereotypes of religious communities, or belief in that one particular religion is superior to the another one. Then this we can example is the militant religious groups that we have. Then the quest for political dominance of one particular community over the another, As we saw that in Sri Lanka, Sinhala wanted to dominate the country over the minority that was the Tamil ones. Okay, and then number third, we have political mobilization on religious line. For example, the use of sacred texts, symbols, and religious leaders during speeches. We can see that, or basically, this is like well, they are promoting their party or like propaganda that we see. Then we have communal violence, that for example of India and Pakistan communal riots that were taking place, which led to the worst riots that happened at the time of partition. So the post-independence period has seen a large-scale communal violence as well. So that's how we can talk about the state different forms of communal politics with one example each. Okay, let's move ahead. Question number 3. State how caste inequalities are still continuing in India. So there are several ways through which caste inequalities are still continuing in India. We can state that. Number 1 is the average economic status that we see of any caste group still follows the old hierarchy. That is, the upper caste are the best off, and the Dalit, Adivasis are the worst off, and the backward classes classes are in between. So if we talk about that old hierarchy, if we talk about that, we got to know about in our previous video as well, that in old hierarchy what happens, that the people who are like educated, as we saw in that one system pyramid as well, Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, and the Untouchables they were totally segregated from that one system. So in this, economic status is totally depending on the old hierarchy that we had earlier as well. That is that the upper caste are the best off, whereas lower caste are in worse condition. So these includes the upper caste are best off in terms economically, and we have lower caste like Dalit, Adivasis. They are in very difficult or worse conditions, with backward classes as in middle. Okay. So this is the old hierarchical pattern that is still following till now. Okay, and although every caste has some poor members, the proportion living in extreme poverty, that is below poverty line, BPL, is much higher among the lower caste people and much lower among the upper caste people, with the backward classes once again fall in between. So what happened? Every caste has poor members, but people belonging to BPL, if we talk about BPL, lower caste, it's like higher possibility if we talk about, or like it's much higher proportion of people living in below poverty line is much higher than the upper caste people if we talk about it. So it is like upper caste are pretty like less in proportion to the people who are living below poverty line, and if we talk about the backward castes, they again fall in between, like middle of lower and upper. Okay. Number 3, we have that every caste has some members who are rich, and upper castes are heavily overrepresented among the rich, while the lower caste severely underrepresented. So every caste members have some people who are rich and some people who are poor. However, the upper caste are heavily overrepresented among the rich because they are like upper caste people accordingly. Till now it exists like that, while the lower caste are severely underrepresented. So even if rich people belonging to lower caste, they are severely underrepresented. underrepresented. So this is what is happening, that still now economical status is working on the basis of old hierarchy. The upper caste people are well off and the low caste people are the worst condition, and backward class fall in between. And talking about the below poverty line as well, lower caste people are tend to be in proportion living below poverty line, and upper caste people would be in less number proportion, and backward caste still fall between both the lower and the upper. Even if any rich person or belongs to a lower caste, he will be very severely underrepresented in comparison to someone from upper caste who will be well presented. Like he will be upper caste will be heavily overrepresented if we talk about it. So that's how we can say that still these caste inequalities are continuing in India. Okay, let's move ahead with the question number 4 that we have. State 2 reasons to say that caste alone cannot determine the election results in India. We have talked about it before as well, that in India what happened, no parliamentary constituency has clear majority. No constituency has clear majority of one single caste. So no constituency can have a clear-cut majority for one single caste. So what happened? Every candidate and party needs to win the confidence of more communities, of more segments of the society in order to win the elections. So what they have to do? They have to win the confidence. Many communities in order to win. Second point is that no party wins the votes of all the voters of a caste or a community. So when people say that they have the vote bank of this particular community in that party, it usually means that a large proportion of the voters from that caste will vote for the party. So we can write it here like no party wins the vote of all the voters of caste or any particular community. It is like totally impossible, because every individual have their own different mindset towards what they wanted to follow. Even if they belong to one particular community, they may have different ideas or different opinions, and they may choose to vote some other political party rather than the party which has been supporting that particular community. So no party wins the vote of all the voters of the caste or community. So what they have to do, when the people say that the voter bank is of one party, they have the voter bank of that particular community in that party, it usually means a large proportion of the voters from that caste are going to vote for the party. It doesn't mean that every voter will vote for that party. So we can say that caste alone cannot determine the election results in India, because there are various other segments which are very important in determining the election scenario and the politics which will take place in our country. Okay. The question number 5 is, what is the status of women representation in Indian legislative bodies? So as we know, there are around 1/3 seats reserved for women in local government. Basically it could be panchayats or municipalities. So around 10 lakh women, basically 10 lakh elected women representatives are there in the local and the urban in the rural and the urban local government bodies. Okay, so women organization activists are also demanding their similar reservation at least 1/3 of the seats in Lok Sabha and the state assemblies also. If we talk about the state assemblies percentage, there is less than 5% around something in the state assemblies. So which is very less if we talk about it. Okay, and in Lok Sabha it is also very less if we talk about. In the last, in 2014, what happened? They had around, it was in 2019 when they had around 14.36% of the total in the Lok Sabha. If we talk about it, it was the highest that happened so far in 2019 Lok Sabha election. What they had, it was around 14.36% were women members. Okay, there have been several political demands by the by organizations and communities for passing a bill for around 1/3 representation within the Lok Sabha or the state assemblies, having representation in Lok Sabha or state assemblies. However, it is still not passed. If we talk about it, it is not passed because of why? Because the political parties are not getting consensus on this issue. Getting consensus on this issue. Okay, that's why this bill has not been passed yet. So this is the status of women representation in the Indian legislative bodies. Okay, let's move ahead. Question number 6, that is, mention any 2 constitutional provisions that make India a secular state. So number 1, what we have, that the fundamental right to freedom of religion clearly states that one has the right to practice, profess and propagate any religion. So if we talk about it, we have an article which states within the constitution that states that is a fundamental right are the freedom of religion. Okay, which clearly states, this is freedom of religion, which clearly states that right. So one has a right to practice, profess and propagate, any religion that they want. Number 2 is, there has been prohibition of discrimination on the basis of religion is one of the tenets in the constitution. So prohibition of discrimination, that this is something that is in where we have in right to equality. So these 2 laws that we have, 2 constitutional provisions, that is freedom of religion, which ensures that one has a right to practice, profess and propagate any religion that they want. Okay, and prohibition of discrimination, that is on the basis of the religion, that is a basic tenets of the constitution, that is the right to equality, which is mentioned in right to equality. These 2 constitutional provisions makes India a secular state. Okay, let's move ahead to the question number 7 that we have. When we speak of gender divisions, we usually refers to what? Either it is biological differences between men and women, unequal roles assigned by society to men and women, unequal child ratio, or absence of voting rights for women in democracy. So this is not the biological difference that it is. Gender division, when we talk about gender division, it is basically more or so unequal roles which are assigned by the society to the men and women. Either it could be based on stereotypes or the social expectation that one individual have for women. That, let's talk about it in the sense that men are mostly used to work in the public sector and women have to work within the private one. They have to do all the, like, this has been the expectation of stereotypes that the people within the society holds, that if it is a girl or a woman, they have to do the household work, they have to do all the courses within the household. But this is not in the case of men. They are not expected to do, and if they do, they are highly regarded and appreciated in that work. But women are not appreciated or regarded for the work they do within their household frame. So that's how we can say, when we talk about gender divisions, this is basically the sexual division of labor that we were talking. We have read it before as well, right? It is not the biological difference between men and women, that they are male or they are female. It is not that. Or neither it is unequal child sex ratio that we see in with each state or in a whole in a country, or absence of voting rights for women in certain democracies. It is not that. It is the unequal roles which are assigned for the society to men and women, making men within the public sphere only and women within the private sphere. This is what we are talking about through the gender divisions. Moving ahead, we have question number 8. In India, seats are reserved for women. Where we have seats reserved for women? We have seats reserved for women in the Panchayati Raj bodies. How much? It's 1/3 of the total seats which are there, right? So they have Panchayati Raj bodies. Panchayati Raj includes what? Panchayats and municipalities. Panchayat is the rural one. This is the urban one. Yeah. So that's how around 1/3 has been reserved for women. So we got to know about a lot through in this video. We got to know about that how caste plays a very important role in politics, and politics also plays a very important role in caste, vice versa. We got to know that the caste in politics have certain some positive as well as negative impacts as well. Okay, and we read a lot through in this. And thank you for being with me in this video at this study room. We will meet again with the quick revision of what we have studied so far in this chapter. Till then, bye bye.